Hello, welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video. Different tree for a change. I wanted to be somewhere a bit more out in the open so I could take a look at the sunset such as it is. I've come out a bit later than usual as well, after dinner for a change. It's now a time of year where that is a feasible thing. Sunset is after 8 o'clock. I've just put in an order with Grape Britannia. I think this is the second time I've ordered something from them and featured it on the channel. Mixed case of 6, all sorts of different producers. This is a producer called Albourne Estate, and it's their Blanc de Noir from 2016. What does it say here on the back? There is some technical information. 70% Pinot Noir, 30% Pinot Meunier. It was bottled 2017, disgorged 2023. Over 6 years on the lees, so I'm expecting a lot of autolytic character here. Slight apprehension going into this, as I think the last time I had a bottle from Albourne, it was faulty, and fair enough, that can happen to any producer, but when it's the first bottle you've tried from a particular producer, it does tend to blot the copybook a bit, doesn't it? I think it's still practically an hour to go until sunset, so I don't think I'm missing anything just yet. Anyway, that's what we have. One of those slightly deeper gold colours that you get from something that's all Pinot, or Pinot Noir and Meunier in this case. Very nice fine bubbles. I can almost see a slight viscosity in that. It has a nice kind of, well, definitely a metallic tint to it, and a sort of sense of something about the way it's moving in the glass, slight sense of viscosity, which is interesting. First whiff on the nose, I'm getting berry fruit and brown sugar, I think. Yeah, and a nice kind of pastry crust. I think that's the autolytic character kicking in. I often say pastry in an autolytic sense, but of course, pastry doesn't contain yeast, so autolytic characters normally include yeasty things, bready things, but it does seem to somehow produce pastry, which is weird because obviously that's not something that involves yeast. But yeah, I am getting a kind of biscuity, pastry-ish. It could be something from a bakery, but it's more from the sweet department. It's not just bread. More something from the patisserie side of the French bakery rather than the boulangerie side of the French bakery, if you know what I mean. Which is very nice. A little bit of a sense of those, are they called punitions? They're a little kind of French shortbread you get from a bakery called Palate in London. I don't know if that's a generic thing or if that's just their name for them. Punitions, it sounds like punishments, doesn't it? But kind of like posh French shortbread. Yeah. Lovely, rich biscuity, slightly buttery aroma, and some berry fruit. Not a lot of apple or citrus or anything like that you might find were this not a Blanc de Noir. And sometimes you do find, even when it is a Blanc de Noir, you find some red apple character with Pinot, but the fruit there I think is more berry fruit. Hard to pin down exactly what kind of berry fruit that is. Almost a slight hint of dried berries, but not in a bad way. I'm not getting a sense this is dried out and flabby. It's a pleasant, refined, slightly dried berry sort of fruit character. And that lovely biscuity base. Okay, it's a good start. Let's give that a swirl. See how that changes things. A little bit more, I don't know, slightly greener fruit. Did I get a whiff of some stone fruit sort of character there? Maybe a bit of gooseberry or something. Yeah, a little bit more veering towards the stone fruit. There could be a hint of peach, could be something like gooseberry, I think. Yeah, okay, well that's a really nice start. It's overall kind of rich and quite luxurious and quite desserty, I think. Wow. And then what a treat on the palate. None of those hints on the nose were giving me the impression of the zing that was about to hit me. Lovely, fresh zing. Really to the point, not messing about. Lovely bit of fresh zing, beautiful bit of acidity. But then just a couple of seconds later, in comes a bit of honey. Interestingly, I think that is a honey-like sweetness. So the balance there is really exquisite. I love that. Really sharp to begin with, And then if you were even getting close to the point where you were thinking that that's a bit too much, in comes a little splash of honey. Really nice, very mineral. Not an abundance of obvious fruit character there, actually, but I don't really mind that here. I mean, there's a sort of subtle background again of the berry fruit, again of the stone fruit. There might be a bit of apricots there. Now I'm thinking about it, yeah, a bit more apricotty, which is more like a champagne note than an English sparkling note, isn't it? Apricots seem to be a fruit that pops all the time in champagne. Yeah, that wonderful thing. Getting some lovely mineral character. Again, a sense of something really luxurious on the palate. A slight hint of something, I suppose, buttery. There is that idea I had of viscosity there. I think it's honey and butter sort of on the palate, weirdly, which might not sound like something you want, but because it's married with that really fresh zing, works brilliantly. Very fine bubbles as well, nice texture from the bubbles there. I mean, perhaps it's not that the fruit is restrained. I wouldn't say it's not fruity, but there is less identifiable fruit there. This vague sense of berries on the nose, and then something more stone fruity, I think, on the palate. But I like that everything it's doing is very much within the realm of what you would hope for from Pinot. Mostly Pinot Noir, but I suppose that richness and the butteriness is coming from the Pinot Meunier. Lovely, really nice, very impressed with that. If I did quibble at the start that an earlier bottle of Albourne, how you pronounce this, it was a number of years ago as well, and like I said, it can happen to any producer, but one bottle was faulty, put me off a little bit, but I shouldn't have been so quick to judge, because this is in perfect condition. There's nothing wrong with this, and it really is a bit of a treat, really quite luxurious. If I recall correctly, this wasn't actually hugely expensive either. I'll put the price on screen. Quite often the Blanc de Noir is the most expensive wine that any given producer of English sparkling makes. Not really sure I still understand why that is. Why should that be more expensive than the blend or than the Blanc de Blanc? I don't quite get the logic there, but that is, I think, a beautiful version of it. Quite different, quite doing its own thing, and it tastes expensive. It tastes a lot more expensive than that number I put on screen. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm terrible at remembering numbers. It was something like, was it 38 quid? I can't, something like that. It wasn't extortionate when a regular run-of-the-mill bottle of Night Timber and Ale goes for 40 something usually, if you don't get it on special offer. Yeah, lovely stuff. Well, I'll shut up for now, sit here and see if there's anything to see of the sunset. It's mostly disappeared behind the bushes over there, so perhaps I'm not in a great spot after all, but it's nice to have a change. If I have any further thoughts on the wine, I will come back to you, but other than that, I'm just going to sit here and watch the sunset, I think.